If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Gordon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for inviting me along. This is really exciting.
Yeah. So give everyone a snapshot of your business.
Well, we're an architecture practice. We are based in Edinburgh. We have no intention to work anywhere other than, or be located anywhere other than in Edinburgh, but we work anywhere. We will work wherever clients want to take us. We're probably punching above our weights in some respects. We're working across the whole of the UK, from the very south to the very north. We're working in the islands. We're working in Iceland. So we're working overseas as well. So there's lots of really exciting stuff. There's 30 of us in the office. We're like a family. And that's kind of what that's the ethos of the business, create that sort of family vibe. Everyone looks after each other, collaborates, works together, looks after each other.
Amazing. So take us back. I know we're actually going to go really far back because you guys have some history. But yeah, take us back to the beginning. How did you end up here? Well,
we're going to go way back, but before we go way back, I mean, this feels like I'm on 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown, because I've got a mascot. I've got 3 mascots. So in my pocket, I have, because Alan and I went to school together in the 80s, and I know people will probably find that hard to believe that Alan went to school in the 80s, but he did. Sadly, no one will be surprised to know that I went to school in the 80s. So I brought some props. So to bring me back to those days, I've got Obi-Wan Kenobi here, who I think I actually...
That's my one.
I'm starting... Is it hell? I'm starting to resemble, which is a little concerning.
Yeah, you do look like him, even with that top as well.
Exactly. And I brought along Han Solo, kind of cheeky chap. Alex, I think you resemble Han Solo, if you'll stand up, and Alan, the
Ewok.
There you go. Spot the difference.
Oh, right.
So anyway, so I brought along these my little comfort blanket, my favourite Star Wars toys who are going to sit there and look after me.
A blast from the past, then.
Exactly. So so Alan and I went to primary school together a long time ago, and we reconnected a couple of years ago, which was just awesome. And I love that. I love kind of meeting people I've not seen for a long time, and it was just immediately, it was just like we gelled. It was so cool. And coming along today, I was kind of reflecting on when you and I knew each other in primary school a long time ago in a galaxy far away. And actually, there was a moment that was the absolutely, unquestionably the moment I decided I wanted to be an architect. And I think we were probably sitting this far apart in that moment. So we were in primary school, and we had a project, sheet of paper, and lots of little strips of paper. And we had to fold those strips into little house shapes and stick them on the bit of paper, and create a little housing estate. And this was a project that the teacher created. And I absolutely loved it. I always loved art, drawing. That was kind of my passion. My dad worked in a paper mill, used to bring paper home from work. That was his bonus, was there was just loads of paper around the house. So I would draw all the time. So I loved drawing. And then suddenly this project that we'd been given by a teacher in primary 7, to create something kind of 3-dimensional, put some little paper objects on another bit of paper to create a pattern of housing where people could live. I kind of immediately spotted an opportunity to have a bit of fun with it, and I stacked some of them, and I had some of them going horizontally, and everybody else, you included, Alan, probably just went for a kind of little cul-de-sac, which was kind of familiar, but I had a little tower block, and I had loads of fun with it. And I remember asking the teacher for more strips of paper, and she kept kind of wondering, why do you want more paper? Surely you've used enough. And I was like, no, I can get more on the bit, more little squares of housing objects on this bit of paper. And that was it. I thought, I want to be an architect. And if I still get a bit of paper from a client, how many little square objects can you fit on this bit of paper? I still apply that same kind of logic. It's how many kind of fit in reasonably, making everything work together. So yeah, that primary 7 moment, you and I sat opposite each other. That was it.
No. Which is probably why I'm not an architect. But I find that fascinating, actually. It was, you can pin it back to a moment that sparked the thing in you. And it's kind of the old Dead Poets Society kind of film kind of just went up in my mind there. About the power of a good teacher. Yeah. That can lay on us a lesson that just hits the mark.
It's exactly that. And actually, I think I'd forgotten about it until I started to think back to our past, and then it's like when you sit and look at photographs, and immediately memories spin out of old photographs, which is just really so wonderful. But I absolutely brought everything, my whole career, back to that one moment, and I'm absolutely certain I can close my eyes and I can picture the classroom, and you were sitting on my right hand side.
Right.
I'm absolutely certain of it, because I'm sure I used to pick on you when you were at school. I'm sure I used to bully you.
I was
We can start listing the reasons, but we won't.
No, exactly.
Amazing. So from there, then that's primary school, P7, on to high school. You're up in Aberdeen as well. So then, what did you do at uni? How did that then?
Well, I guess for both Alan and I, the ideal career would have been a professional footballer.
At that time, yeah.
Neither of us got terribly close to it, unfortunately. You probably got slightly closer than I did, but that wasn't an option. So studying architecture, that was absolutely what I wanted to do from a very young age. I was the first in my family to leave school and go to university, so I felt, I guess, a great responsibility to make sure that I studied hard and passed all my exams and found myself a successful career path. I probably spent too much time not studying hard and actually having fun. And I had a job through the whole of my university education. And again, reflecting on the past, I think actually I probably learned more from the job that I had in working in a clothes shop, selling jeans. I learned an awful lot more from that than I did from 5 years of studying architecture, if I'm brutally honest.
Go on.
Because I guess loads of architects can draw, and there's way more talented architects than me. I employ more talented architects than me, because they can design beautiful buildings and make them look stunning, make them work, integrate them into environments, and it can buildings look absolutely outstanding. But you need to be able to sell a service, and I think that working in a clothes shop with an amazing manager who really kind of engaged with customers and valued the customers, because selling a pair of jeans, you want that same person to develop a bit of a relationship with you, so they come back to buy another pair of jeans in the future. And I learned loads from him, and it was an amazing lesson. It was a great environment to work in as well, because it was also actually really quite creative. Working in a clothes shop 2 or 3 days a week was an outstanding kind of learning opportunity for me. So I never kind of downplay that. I think when I talk to colleagues about career progression, I always reflect on that kind of clothes shop job that I had when I was younger, because I learned so much from that experience.
And can you remember any of the kind of tips or lessons that you kind of got from that manager then?
Well, I do, and I remember his kind of slightly softer approach to sales, and I remember that because he lost his job. It's brutal. Retail's brutal world. He lost his job because, not because sales targets weren't being met, but because an area manager visited and said, I don't like the sales approach. It needs to be harder, sharper, quicker, faster, turn around sales. And the minute somebody would walk into the shop, it was grab them, find out what they want, sell it to them as quickly as possible, get on to the next customer. That was the approach that was then taken. So it totally changed the atmosphere and the environment, and it became a less fun, friendly place to work. Sales didn't go up. It was a kind of real short-term approach. So the original manager, who was a bit softer, a bit more gentle in his approach, try and get to know the customer, not just send them away with a bag and forget about them, move on to the next one. It was always about getting to know the customer. And I get to know my clients because ultimately, they're giving me so much and they're placing so much responsibility on me. I want to know them a little deeper than simply, the person that works for the business that's employing me or engaging me to deliver a service. I want to know them on a more personal level, to understand what it is they're really looking for and what inspires them, what motivates them.
And so to your point then about kind of employing people who are maybe even better architects than you technically, how much do you then take of the softer side? I actually don't like it. I've said it, but I don't like but that skill of how you manage people and how you influence positively, how do you train that in the team?
Yeah, I think that's through recruitment actually, and sometimes it's finding individuals who have maybe a similar approach to the interview process that maybe I would have taken at that time, or they've got a more comfortable delivery of their selling themselves. I think that can be so important. Overconfidence is something that doesn't interest me. It's almost that imposter syndrome that actually I think is a real positive to have an element of that. Overconfidence is not an attractive feature. So we don't know everything. I'll regularly make mistakes in the things that I do, but I learn from them. And I think the overconfidence kind of suggests that actually you may not learn from mistakes because you will think that mistakes have been caused by somebody else rather than making them yourself. So yeah, I very much look for a kind of an element of people underplaying themselves, and I think that then stitches quite nicely into our business and our ethos.
Yeah, nice.
So how did you end up then? You then became an architect, I assume, and then what was the shift from being an employee, I guess, into then being like, no, I want my own practice?
It was probably quite a gradual process, and I guess I had the benefit of working my first job in the professional world straight from university was almost like a continuation of university, because there were some amazing people in a practice that we were friends. We were all a kind of big group of friends who would go out on a Friday night and probably drink too much, but back at work on a Monday with lots of stories and lots of sharing, and it was just a really lovely environment to work in. And I learned lots from that job, but I also learned how not to do things, and it was almost an over-reliance on one particular client was ultimately a downfall for that business. But I'd moved on, went to work in Dublin for a number of years, and it was a very different world over there. It was during the Celtic Tiger. It was really dynamic. It was a far more creative environment in the office. There were the people coming and going far more regularly. There was no dress code. There were no fixed hours. It was really quite relaxed. But the employers knew that they would be getting the most from their employees because there was so much work to do and to get through. So it was a really fun, creative environment. And I think when I then came back to Scotland, I took, I guess, the good stuff that I'd learned and the bad stuff, how maybe not to do it. And, if I'm honest, we found ourselves in a position at one point where we had massive reliance on one client. And it was wonderfully reassuring because there was a kind of almost not guaranteed, but there was security there in terms of workload and income. But equally, it was very concerning because that didn't necessarily lead to a sort of continuous path. So I was very conscious of that and mindful of the need to spread the wings a little. So working in Edinburgh with one key client was I guess a kind of dangerous place to be. But winding back a little bit from that, that one key client grew out of a project that is literally, I don't know, maybe a 9-iron from here. In that direction, it's a project in Montgomery Street, and it was a significant project for us as a practice, and it was a real defining project because it was a client from London who was developing in Edinburgh. The result of that project was them expanding their business massively, and they took us on the journey with them. So that was for me, that was the opportunity to then take ownership of a business, because suddenly I had a wonderful relationship with this particular client who was guaranteeing us essentially a significant body of work up and down the UK. So that was really exciting.
And Gordon, just to check, so was this almost a helpful step in lessening the reliance on that single client?
This was the single client.
Oh, sorry, right. Okay.
This became the single client.
Oh, I see, right.
But the single client was wonderful because there was almost like a bit of mentoring there as well. They had a significant body of knowledge for the product that we produced on the site just down the road. So for me, that was an amazing opportunity to learn from them. They took their business and not directly as a result of the project that we completed for them in Edinburgh, but it certainly helped them to move their business to the next level, and they brought us with them. So it was really exciting, and they did become our key client for quite a long period of time. But equally, as the relationship evolved, it opened other opportunities for us, and suddenly we found ourselves with a whole bunch of opportunities up and down the UK, because this was a sort of national investor developer. It opened doors for us and brought us a whole bunch of new clients that we've developed successful relationships with. And one thing we've not done terribly much of is marketing, is selling ourselves. So whilst I kind of have a bit of a sales background and I love selling a service, we don't go out to market. We generate our work through references and relationships. Brilliant. And so it's kind of moved from sales to actually just really fostering and harnessing positive relationships with great people who I enjoy spending time in their company. And I think that's kind of what it's all about. Yeah, well, life's hard enough, and if I can enjoy the company of the people that I'm working with or working for, then that makes it so much easier. And it makes it much easier to get to bed in the morning when things maybe aren't going so well. When there are difficult decisions to be made, or problems with projects. It makes it much easier to get in and find the solutions and actually move things forward in a positive way.
Do you know, I'm a big follower, as you know, Alex, of Warren Buffett. I just love everything that he stands for, really. But he always talks about this idea of just work with people who are good people and people you enjoy being with. And there's an awful lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
And living proof in front of us there.
Yeah.
In terms of how you've developed things. So
yeah, well, but I think everything's about relationships, isn't it? Life's about relationships, and finding clients who I want to go and have a cup of coffee with, or a beer with, and actually spend time with them on a personal level, and not just talk about business and work and projects, and actually get to know individuals, because so much to learn from everyone that we meet, everyone. And I love that. I love meeting people.
Was that a strategic choice? Or, do you remember the moment where you realized, like, oh, this is just all about relationships?
It absolutely just happened naturally.
Yeah.
And I think that was the wonderful thing about the way our business has evolved. It started many years ago. But it really changed. The direction of our business changed as a result of the project close to here and the relationships that were formed. And suddenly my eyes were opened to the opportunity to get to know a whole bunch of new people, and not just work in the Edinburgh market, which is absolutely wonderful. But there's a lot of architects in Edinburgh, and there's a lot of architects. There's not a significant number of big projects, so there's a lot of architects chasing the same work. So it was really a sort of wonderful opportunity to be working outside of Edinburgh, get to know other cities and other regions, then take some of that experience back to Edinburgh and use that as a positive to then generate work more locally.
And how, just out of interest, and it's a genuine naive question here, how would you view the architectural industry in Edinburgh or market? Is it collaborative? Is it competitive? What's the
both?
Right, okay.
It's getting. At times it can be quite challenging, and I guess every industry suffers the same. Architecture can sometimes be a bit of a sort of race to the bottom. There's an element of undercutting going on, but equally, I see more and more collaboration. I think where and communication, and I guess it's as people maybe of our generation have become the business owners. We have perhaps a more open relationship with each other, so we will talk about good clients and bad clients, and things that are going well and things that aren't going so well. So there's a far better level of communication now, I think, in architecture industry.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Was there quite a swing then from you going from an architect drawing, literally every day was drawing and planning, to then being the business guy who then had to run the business? Do you remember that switch, and what was that like?
Yeah, I do remember the switch. I do still draw a lot, and if I'm not drawing, I'm not happy. You know, I love a spreadsheet. I do absolutely love a spreadsheet, but you know, I'm looking at the piece of paper you've got in front of you, and if that was my piece of paper sitting in front of me, I would be doodling, and I'd be doodling something that would have a relevance to something that we're doing. So I love drawing, whether it's sketching, which takes me right back to the very beginning when I was sitting in my mum and dad's house with piles of paper, just drawing stuff because I love drawing. If I'm doing that, I'm in my happy place right now. But equally, you know, the way we run the business, everybody mucks in. So if there's, and we tell everyone this in the practice when they start with us, that, you know, if somebody needs bailed out on a project because there's an impending deadline and something needs done, you know, I will drop what I've got to do and muck in to help because, you know, I have, you know, an ability to draw, and I want to not lose that. So yeah, I love working with CAD software and sketching and designing. You know, it's still a massive part of what I do. In terms of the business running, there, you know, obviously it plays a large part in what I do. You know, there's things I have to think about now that I certainly didn't think about 20 years ago when my career was starting. And I guess it is that natural progression. Responsibility increases, and it increases because of desire to learn more and know more. So I don't think there was a particular moment. It just kind of evolved and happened.
And so, but as the business owner, you also made a decision to change or to rebrand, didn't you? So can you talk us through that and maybe give us an idea as to where the name of your company comes from?
Delighted you asked that. And in fact, actually, the name of the business is almost designed to force people to ask the question. Right. So it kind of piques a bit of interest. It was the moment we were planning to rebrand anyway. And I was actually sitting in a meeting in Milan, and one of the gentlemen who I was meeting asked a question about the name of our business, because it was the name of the business was the previous owner. It was their name, and he couldn't understand why this individual wasn't at the meeting, because in Italy, a bit more traditional. Initial meeting with a new client, the business owner would be there, and of course when I explained I was the business owner, he was kind of baffled because it was a lady's name, and he was confused as to why I was there in the meeting, and he said, you need to change it. And we were planning to change it anyway, but in a conversation with him, he was kind of really quite excited about the fact that we were from Edinburgh. And we did a bit of a workshop with the team in the office around names, and then we had some wonderful help from a creative studio who you both know, and kind of a few workshops throughout, a few names, a few options, and we decided on 56three because Edinburgh is 56 degrees north and 3 degrees west, and it felt interesting, but also a little obscure, so people would be forced to either try and find out what it is, what it means, or ask the question. And I think that's generally worked. You know, you've asked the question now, and I'm delighted to tell you that's why, you know, there's a story there. And essentially it takes us back to Edinburgh. You know, the further and further away from Edinburgh we work, almost the more resonant that story is, because, you know, this is our base. We love Edinburgh. We don't want to move away from here. But we're happy to work absolutely anywhere and tell people about Edinburgh, because that's where we're from. That is our base.
And have you ever met people who said, we wanted to kind of pass the project to you, but we actually forgot whether it was 56three or 57.2 or, you know, because initially I kind of...
I did that today even. I was like, what are the numbers again?
You know, so you have to think about it. So again...
My eyes are rolling at the back of my head.
Hey, listen, you brought the Ewok.
I did bring the Ewok. And I mean, you know, we did a bit of branding, so we tried to raise the profile by doing a bit of brand work. You know, we did launch the business, launch the rebrand on St. Patrick's Day 2020, just as Boris was pushing the country into lockdown. Yeah. So that was quite a frightening time.
Yeah.
rebranding a business entirely at a time when we couldn't go out and talk about it. And you know, that was a scary moment. But actually, it was also an opportunity. It was actually really quite exciting because, you know, well, it wasn't exciting at the time. It was absolutely terrifying at the time. I think we were all terrified and we just didn't know where it was going to go. But it became quite exciting. And I think, you know, the certainly the 2 years of COVID when we were locked down, great opportunity for us to really almost reinvent the business and the way we approach the work that we do and where we're working and how we work and who we employ and you know, how we collaborate. It was actually really quite exciting.
And just on that point, you got 30 guys there, girls? Are you all in the office? Do you do a bit of the hybrid stuff?
We've outgrown our office, so we have a townhouse in the West End of Edinburgh, and we've outgrown. So it's hybrid working is great. Giving people a bit of flexibility is great. You know, we have the majority of the team in the office 3 or 4 days a week, but the majority have to work from home 1 day a week because we simply don't have the space. We run out of space.
Surely as an architect you can find space.
We could, but it would be to the detriment of the environment. I think of the creative environment. Actually, having space is great. Having a bit of space around us all is great. You know, we did previously, or the rooms previously, where we had 6 desks, and after COVID, during COVID, we dropped it to 4 desks to create a bit of separation. And actually, you realise how much more comfortable that is, and you know, I think you can. It's a more creative working environment, a more dynamic working environment when there's maybe slightly fewer people in a room. It's a little bit less noisy. Everybody's on Teams meetings now. You know, it's also the beauty of these old Georgian townhouses. You know, they're a bit cookie cutter. There's small rooms on every floor, and those small rooms are now little meeting rooms where people can take a laptop and join a Teams meeting. You know, if it's going to be a bit noisier. So it's allowed us to work in a different way. And it is really exciting. So 30 people in the office, and we're at the point where, you know, the more we employ, and we are looking to recruit at the moment, the more people we take on, the more requirement there is for people to do a bit more hybrid working, which is really exciting. Really exciting.
Can I go back to the brand? Because I think lots of people don't invest enough time and / money into creating a good brand. And I think the brand is beautiful. Like, I love it. I think it looks amazing. I think it really suits what you do. Like, what was your decision? I know you said about pulling it from, but you could have spent 30 quid and got a logo off Fiverr. Do you know what I mean? Like, why did you go down the process of really trying to work that?
Wanting to do it properly. And I think we'd underinvested in so many things previously. We thought, we've got one, you know, we want to do this once, we will do it again. We want to do it once initially properly. And you know, we very much wanted to move away from the sort of traditional architect's practice, which often is the surname of the individuals who own the business. And then as more individuals come in, more surnames get added, and then it drops from surnames to letters, and it just becomes a bit of a muddle, and there's loads of that. So we want to be something a bit different. There are other architects' practices that use numbers, but we thought there was an opportunity to do something a little bit different with the marketing and the branding. You know, we do have, we dropped architects from 56three because we have interior designers, we have conservation accredited architects, we do brand monitoring, so that there are other things that we do rather than just limited to architecture. So it's quite important to have a brand where we could drop the word architecture from it, or architects, and, you know, maybe in time introduce other words to the branding. And
how did you find that process? Like, going through, do you enjoy it?
It was great. It was great. There was good coffee. There were good pastries, and coffee and pastries, as you know, that literally gets me up in the morning. You know, I love a pastry, love a coffee. It was a great process. It was creative. We had a lot of fun with it, and we worked with a business that, you know, that kind of invested in us and got to know us.
And it was Julie, yeah?
And it was Julie, yeah.
39 steps?
39 steps. Well done. Got your numbers right this time.
There you go. Well,
37.
42 steps.
40, yeah. Exactly. Julie was amazing. Julie and our team were brilliant. And, you know, we did a great bit of work with them. You know, they came in to see Richard, the co-owner of my business, of our business, and Julie came in to see Richard and I, and we spent a lot of time together. You know, delving into who our clients are, you know, what really interests us about the work that we do, and you know, ultimately, all played a kind of a role in you know, creating a bit of branding that, yeah.
And it's something you're proud of. At the end of it, you know, you're confident in it, and it gives you such a platform to perform off, even, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, you know, it does look quite professional, which helps, because often I don't look very professional. So, you know, yeah, having something pretty solid behind us definitely helps. You know, our website's pretty comprehensive. Yeah. I mean, I get lost in it, if I'm honest, sometimes, but you know, there's a lot of information there about what we do, what we're about. We keep a few things away from the website that does then encourage people to ask the question when we meet for the first time. But yeah, it was a great exercise.
And you mentioned the word professional just earlier there, and but kind of then against that, you've also mentioned fun a number of times. I know people would describe you as a mischief maker.
Yeah.
Tell us about your mischief making.
Well, there's probably things I can't tell you. There's an awful lot I can't tell you because it would get me in trouble. I've always loved a bit of mischief. I mean, fun mischief. Never anything that would cause upset. Occasionally cause upset. Try not to cause upset. I don't cause upset these days. There was a time when my mischief would cause a little bit of upset, if I'm completely honest. And if anyone's watching this, they might know about a couple of incidents that caused a bit of upset. But it doesn't happen very often these days. Never happens these days. I love a bit of mischief. You know, we had when I worked in Dublin, we were in a beautiful Georgian townhouse in Merrion Square, and being an architect's practice, quite often tour companies would ask if they could come and bring a busload of Americans around the office to show them the inside of a Georgian townhouse, because the building was complete, and we had the building top to bottom. So we'd occasionally have bus tours coming around, and there's one particular day, I don't know, I had a little bit of time on my hands. A bus tour was about to arrive, so I encouraged one of my colleagues to lie on the floor, and I got some masking tape, and we taped out the body shape on the floor, and asked all the tourists to step around the body markings on the floor, because it was an active crime scene, and there was huge concern. There was lots of photograph taking of the crime scene. So yeah, kind of harmless mischief. I love a bit of harmless mischief, and I mean, sometimes it can be quite embarrassing. I did have a toe curling moment a number of years ago, a Christmas party. Buy colleagues a present for a small amount of money, and I bought a colleague a rubber chicken and a leather biker cap, as you do. And at that time, we were working on a project with a television company on a television program about being a property developer. So the television crew arrived in the office a week after the Christmas party to do some filming, set up a little bit like this, behind a colleague's desk, and I then had to lean over his shoulder, point at a model on the screen, and talk through the designs. And I sat down probably 5-6 months later to watch the television program. And hanging from his angle poise was the leather biker cap with the studs around the perimeter, and leaning against his monitor was the rubber chicken. So I talk about a professional environment, and I absolutely undermined everything that I stand for. And it was on television, absolutely mortifying. And I had a cousin in Australia who saw the program a couple of years later and was sending messages around the family in absolute hysterics at my truly embarrassing working environment.
Really? What was the program? Out of interest.
I'm not telling you.
In case you don't find it.
Exactly.
I will find it.
No. I've searched high and wide. My kids have been looking for it. It is available on certain platforms, but there's absolutely no chance. I'm telling you.
All right. And what about in Edinburgh then as well? Any other kind of projects that you've worked on that people would kind of know about?
There's a lot of projects that I've worked on, I guess through my career. You know, I worked in the Caledonian Hotel, now the Waldorf Astoria. Yeah. Many years ago, we did a fairly significant refurb of that hotel. the Ibis in Hunter Square in the Old Town. That was a project that the practice I worked for were heavily involved in a long time ago. We've delivered other projects that have some significance, from the Montgomery Street infill and the Gateway Apartments at the top of Leith Walk, the wine store in Frederick Street. So we've done some small projects, we've done some big projects, we've done some really exciting stuff, and yeah, I think we have got a good body of work in Edinburgh, but equally we've got a really good body of work in other cities across the UK. And if you were to ask me about a kind of I guess a signature building, something that we've completed that we're really proud of, we've done loads in Edinburgh, but the building that would immediately spring to mind is in Bristol. There's something really quite unique there, but equally we've got some really exciting stuff about to start on site in Isle of Man, which is really cool. But we're doing a big urban project in Isle of Man, a full city block, and we're doing a beach house over in Lower Largo, the other side of the Forth. So we work to scale, but we work in small stuff. We'll design a desk for a client if they want a desk. So we'll do anything from the minute to the reasonably sizable.
Okay, what would your ideal project? The one, if you could only do one more project, what would it be? What would
your last hurrah?
Mm-hmm. The last hurrah would be a beach hut. It would actually be a beach hut. It would be a small project, getting right into the detail of it. So a small crafted, beautiful object right next to the beach. That would be my last.
Like Necker Island.
Yeah, scale down, scale right down.
When you say beach hut, because it's interesting, we're just waiting on a picture coming back from the framers, which is of the beach huts on Findhorn Beach, which is where my wife's from.
Right.
So are you talking that kind of beach hut?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I mean, those beaches are beautiful, aren't they? They all look the same, but they're all painted different colours, and they just sit in the most beautiful line. And that's an utterly charming, kind of almost poetic place, isn't it? Because you've got the sunset, the other side of the Murray Firth, and the beach huts are just in the most beautiful alignment next to the shore. It's a stunning place. Findhorn's, that's kind of my happy place. I do love a bit of swimming in the sea, and that's probably why the beach hut would be a great little project, somewhere to get changed in the dry and out of eyesight. But Findhorn's is just an absolute joy of a place to visit. Thoroughly like it there.
Nice.
Beach huts. That would be the final project. So niche. It's a bit niche, but the big projects are hugely exciting, hugely complicated, and can be hugely stressful. I would just love to do a final project that would be like a little bothy or a beach hut. Something for me.
Gordon, tell us, what is your guiding principle in business?
It's don't worry about making mistakes, because we all make them, and I make them regularly. It's learning from them, and it's having a bit of fun along the way, and really enjoying what it is we do. That's got to be the main motivation, because life is tough, and I do look forward every morning to going to work, even when things are hard, because I know there'll be, at some point in the day, there'll be a bit of fun. And create a kind of slightly playful environment. I mean, that's what motivates me. So not making mistakes and having fun. Not being afraid of making mistakes and having fun. That's really what's important to me.
Yeah.
The thing is, you've got to respect that, because if you as the owner aren't having fun, then what's it going to be like for the rest of your team? So that I think I would agree with you. I think if you're not having fun, flipping heck, what's the point?
Probably quite often I'm having fun and they're miserable as sin because I'm having too much fun. I'm sure that happens from time to time. But there's a balance. But if we can create enjoyable places to work, where people look forward to coming in, and meeting colleagues that are also friends, and working with clients who are also friends, that's just so important to me, because I love people.
Brilliant.
Gordon, thank you so much for coming on, sharing a little bit of your story, and good luck in the future.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. That's tremendous. And I'll take these back, because they're probably quite valuable these days. And I can see you've got this might have been yours actually back in the day. Nicked it from your bedroom when we were 10 years old.